Okay. Next up, within the animals, still within the clade of the Bilateria, which means we have to make a choice. Are we making our mouth first? Yep, we are. Protostomia, referring to that developmental stage where the blastopore becomes the mouth. We're still in our molting protostomes. So we're in the Lophotrochozoa, so the non-molting protostomes. And we're within the biggest now phylum of our non-molting protostomes, the molluscs. This is far and away the most biodiverse group of the Lophotrochozoa. It's second, I think, only to the Annelida, not the Annelida. Sorry, the arthropods in terms of number of species. So there are a lot of very important organisms in this phylum, the mollusca. Mollusca means soft-bodied. Even though many mollusks are best identified by the hard parts that they leave behind. In many cases, they can leave hard parts behind for millions of years in the form of their shells. Think about like clams and oysters and snails leaving behind their shells. But their bodies, those shells, protect a very, very soft body indeed. As we will see. Okay, so in this case, we're going to draw a member of the class Gastropoda, which means belly foot, or couldn't tell you exactly why. Because there's not a whole lot, I don't know. It's just going to be our generic snail, something that's familiar to us. Okay, so we're not going to draw the intricate torsion or twisting of the snail, which is an interesting phenomenon we find in many gastropods, that their bodies are bilaterally symmetrical, but then they can be curled into a spiral that gets larger and larger as the animal grows and ages. But we're not going to show all of that. We're just going to show that we've got a shell. We'll just have to imagine that through this this longitudinal section, that torsion is occurring. And our snail is feeling not so shy right now, so we will go ahead and have its head exserted. So that we can see the eye stalks. And they do have eyes that they're not quite image-forming eyes yet, although there are some mollusks that do have image-forming eyes. We will see later. But we're not quite at that point yet. Okay, so what we do need to have, so this is going to be our snail's mouth. And inside of the mouth, this is going to be the gut, but inside of the mouth, we find that there is this specialized rasping tongue called a radula. The radula it's kind of like a tongue, but it is covered in hundreds or thousands of microscopic teeth, and the shape of the teeth is very distinctive throughout the gastropoda. Um, Sometimes they can be mineralized, or they could just be proteinaceous. The teeth on the radula, and they enable the gastropod to, well, eat whatever it's going to eat. So if you've ever gone to the beach and found like a clam shell or a little bivalve shell, and noticed that right on the hinge there's like a perfectly round circular little hole on there, and you might think to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm going to take this shell and I'm going to make a necklace out of it because there's a perfect little hole there for it, and I wonder how that perfect little hole got there right in that perfect spot. Well, that is the result of mollusk on mollusk violence. Probably some gastropod came along and went and attacked that clam at the weakest spot on its shell in order to get it open, which is right at that hinge. So they use that radula to drill that perfectly little hole, circular hole in the shell of its neighbor there to get to it and eat it. Okay. I'm gonna leave a little spot there, and so we can have our intestine. Kind of, it doesn't just like make one perfect loop-de-loop like that, but hey, if one loop-de-loop is okay. All right, so we've got a stomach for digesting the food, which means everything after the stomach is going to be intestine for food absorption, and that's going to eventually lead to an anus. All right, so we've taken care of the eating and digesting and egesting needs of our friend here. So we're also going to have, let's see, there's going to be a space inside because these are eucoelomate. So we have a body cavity, and inside the body cavity we have a few organs. So we're going to draw sort of like a little cloud shape here. It's not really a cloud. That is actually the gonad of our snail. It's not a testicle or an ovary per se, because many gastropods are actually hermaphroditic. So they will produce both sperm and eggs. So they may have a couple of different gonads. They can have very sophisticated mating rituals to determine who's going to produce the eggs and who's going to produce the sperm. Sometimes they can fertilize each other, or sometimes one snail will or slug will fertilize another, and so only one is producing eggs, the other's producing. There's a whole range of different things. Again, very diverse group of animals. Okay, so just inside of the shell is a structure, an organ unique to the mollusks called a mantle. And the mantle is what secretes the shell. So something I haven't done a great job of drawing here, again, is that torsion where the shell of the snail is actually a spiral. And as the snail grows from a larval stage into an adult snail, that shell just continues to put on more and more. It adds on to the spiral, and that's how it becomes a larger organism. So the mantle is what's producing that new calcium carbonate shell material. Okay, we're also going to draw in, kind of tucked in behind this, behind the intestine here, we're going to draw kind of like a leaf shape connected to a, there's going to be like kind of a leaf shape down here. It's not a leaf, but it is connected to a circulatory system, which, unlike the circulatory system that we saw in the annelid, this is an open circulatory system. So we've got that leaf-shaped thing. Turns out that is the gill for this particular gastropod, this snail. And this structure up here is its heart. And that heart is pumping. They don't really have blood like you and I have blood, but they do have kind of like a fluid that needs to be circulated. But it just kind of like gets pumped out into the coelom so that it can kind of wash back down to the gill and be reoxygenated and then pumped through. And so just that process of kind of keeping the whole circulation continuous means there doesn't need to be a closed system. I'm not explaining it super clearly, but just take my word for it that these mollusks have an open circulatory system that takes advantage of that motion of the fluid in there to keep everything nice and oxygenated. Okay, one more structure I'm going to tuck in here. It's just going to kind of be like just a shape down here at this end. Oops. Okay, so we know what the shell is. This structure here is the metanephridium, similar to what we saw in the earthworm. This animal needs to filter out metabolic wastes and things and get rid of them. So the metanephridium is what accomplishes that. It removes metabolic wastes from that fluid that's pumping through here, which is called hemolymph. Okay, I think I got most of, one more thing I need to put in here, which is, I'm going to draw a ring kind of surrounding our gut, which is going to lead to two of these things, which hopefully by now you've picked up on the pattern and you can identify these things as the ventral nerve cords. Okay, one more structure we need to identify here, which is how does this thing move along? It has one structure that it locomotes on. It keeps it kind of coated with mucus and produces the ever familiar snail trail. That structure is called a foot. So that's the foot part of the gastropod that we see in many of the other classes within the mollusca. So cephalopod means head foot, gastropod means belly foot, and they both have a singular foot. So I think that covers everything I wanted to draw for you. Maybe I'll just kind of once again indicate that we've got an open circulatory system. And yeah, that'll about do it. So we're getting more and more complex, more and more sophisticated as we delve deeper into the animals.